when you're limited, it makes you think outside the box. Like I can't get a police car. So how can I create a scene where I got police lights and an officer showing up in a car? How can I pull that off? Well, you may not have to see it to know, your mind is so powerful. Pull on that.
Yes,
so if I show the guy in the costume and you see the lights, because you can get that effect from a lot of different lights nowadays. So I got the lighting effect and I got the guy in a uniform. I don't necessarily have to have the car.
Welcome to Blackxecutive Podcast, where we share inspiration and actionable advice for Black creatives going pro. I'm your host, Jazz. With each episode, we'll chat with Black creatives thriving in entrepreneurship, corporate careers, and the nonprofit sector, all while building a network of Black creatives, 6 head nods apart. Enjoy the show, where the dreamers become doers and the aspiring become inspired. Let's get started. Welcome back, Blackxecutive fam. Today, we're diving into the behind the scenes of an industry many of us have been immersed in since the beginning of quarantine, film. I'm talking to film director, videographer, and photographer of RB Media Solutions, Ryan Barnes. Welcome to the show, Ryan.
Thank you, Jasmine. I appreciate it. Glad to be here.
Thank you. Thanks for agreeing to spend some of your time chatting with me today. I know you're busy. You have a lot of things going on. And, I know you as being a multi-hat creative. Like you're in the film game, the photography game, the podcast game, etc. So can you talk a little bit about your creative background and how you transitioned into film?
Sure. When I really think back on it, I've been holding a camera probably since I could walk. I got my first camera. A great aunt bought me a Polaroid back when I was about 4 or 5 years old. One of the cameras that, take the instant pictures. You had to buy the little flash bar and the whole 9 yards. And that's what really got me started. And from that point forward, I just kind of progressed to, started shooting on 110. When you had the little film, you had to get it developed. So I had 110 cameras, and I had 35 millimeter cameras. And we were fortunate as well to have one of the early camcorders back when, personal households had camcorders. And so my parents used to let me operate that. And it was mostly filming vacations and church services and stuff like that. The thing was bigger than me almost. It was humongous. You had to put it on your shoulder and so forth. So I've always had my hands in it. And from that point, when the internet, I started on a computer early as well. I had a computer back when IBM first came out, like the 286, and it wasn't even graphic interface yet. You still had to do the DOS prompts. And right now I say DOS prompt to people and they look at me crazy, like, what are you talking about? But yeah, so that, got me started in the computer world. And while I was on active duty in the military, Black Planet was real big. And so I started learning how to look at source code, and I really got intrigued with web design. So I got started in that. I wanted to learn web design, but every college that I contacted, you had to have a prerequisite in graphic design. So after about the third or fourth school telling me the same thing, I ended up going to college for graphic design with a specialization in web design. And so that, got me in the door really in the creative, fields. And that was while I was out in San Diego. So, you're right there next to LA. A lot of people I went to school with, got jobs at Pixar and stuff like that. And through that course, I learned 3D animation on Maya. I learned video editing on Final Cut Pro. And of course, graphic design, I use, Photoshop and Illustrator and so forth. So I've been using Adobe for many years now. I'm almost ashamed to say how many years, but yeah, so that's what really got me immersed in it.
Okay, wow, that's interesting, and it's funny that you said you had to go to school for graphic design with a minor in web design. I feel like it's or concentration in web design. I feel like it's almost the opposite now. Where there are so many fields that are shifting away. You hardly even see graphic designer shown as much anymore as like the description.
Right.
It's something else, and now UX UI designers is that's really big, and that's the field where I'm in, and you just see all these different titles now. That's interesting that you like had to have that concentration. Also, you said Black Planet. Shout out.
Yes. You remember Black Planet?
Absolutely.
They're still around.
Oh, I know, because I had to contact them to remove one of my old accounts, because when you search my name, it still popped up, and I am an adult.
Oh, wow. Actually, not too long ago, I was just curious. I was talking about it with someone, and I installed their app on my phone and was able to log back in.
Wow, that's
It's been
crazy.
that many years, but yeah, it's still there. I don't know if you remember web TV for people that didn't have a computer.
I don't know if I remember that.
So web TV was kind of like, it was just a box, a unit, kind of like a VCR, DVD player. And you hook it to your TV and you could access the internet. This was back when AOL and dial-up and all of that.
Yeah.
But you could access the internet, and it had a remote control for you to navigate. Or you could spend some extra money and buy a keyboard to hook to it. But yeah, went the web TV route too at one point. So, I mean, we've come a long way,
Yes, we
in our
have.
generation.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, I don't know about the web TV. I know I was on computers at a young age too. At 5, I had a computer, and I remember getting the little AOL disc. Not that thin, but eventually, as I was growing up, getting those in the mail and having to install those. It's just so crazy now, and kids today will never know.
Right. They don't understand the struggle we had with dial-up with the 56K modem. And
yes,
like you said, those AOL and chat rooms were just everything, to be able to chat. But now, everything is so high speed, and cable internet and satellite internet is just, it's crazy when you look back on it.
Yeah, that's crazy how we've evolved so quickly. So, I've seen a lot of theories on the tech revolution and how that is such a different revolution from the other ones that we've seen throughout history, and how quickly we could easily hit this point with AI, in which we're beyond pretty much return for humanity, and like we have to move on to the next evolution with AI or perish. But that's another episode.
Exactly.
So back to your career in film. So I know that, like, when I met you, you were mostly focusing on photography at that time, at least to my knowledge. So, but now you're actually in the process of like making a film. So what was the catalyst that kind of sparked that decision?
I actually, so let me back up just a little bit. When I moved back to Arkansas. Let me say that. I moved back to Arkansas in 2005, and I tried to launch a magazine. So this is when print, which is now no longer a thing. When print was a thing, I tried to launch a magazine, and I hired a photographer to come do my photo shoots and so forth. And I was looking at what he was doing, and I'm like, I could do this myself. So at that point, I started investing in, in equipment. So I got my first camera. It was an Olympus, and I shot on that camera for about 10 years.
Wow.
And I finally upgraded to a Canon 60D when that first came out. As soon as it came out, I bought that camera, and it had video capability. So at that point, I started studying, making films, indie films and stuff. So like on YouTube, you had Indie Mogul and Film Riot were really big. And so I started planning at that point. But I'm that type of person, if it ain't perfect, I don't do it. I'm not going to put it out there if it's not perfect. So that's really when I started messing with that, with film. And now, recently I just got to the point where it's like, look, either you're going to do it or you're not, so, I would make every excuse in the book. I don't have this gear. I don't have that gear. And now I have accumulated so much equipment, so many cameras and microphones. And I mean, you name it, I got it. several drones and so forth. So it's like you have absolutely no excuse at this point.
None. Right.
Get it done. And so this past weekend, I actually shot a short film that'll be coming out here real soon. And we got plans to actually launch a couple of channels for 2021 on Roku and
Okay.
Amazon Fire.
Yes, love to hear that. I didn't know that. Now that is excellent, excellent. So, okay, how did you? Now I'm derailing. So, how did you get into like the channel game? How does that work?
Well, just always looking to expand. So I'm like, okay, it costs so much money to even get started in this type of thing. And I'm looking for ways to recoup that investment. And so, and I'm the type of person, if I'm gonna eat, I want everybody around me to eat.
Yes.
And now, like, things are so easy to get involved with on the lower levels where, before you thought you had to go to Hollywood in order to be a movie star.
Right.
But with technology advancing the way it is today, where, consumer cameras, I just bought a 6K camera, so,
Wow.
consumers like you and I can participate in these same industries that used to be exclusive to Hollywood and their millions of dollars. So starting a channel on Roku or Amazon Fire is, a few $100 now.
Wow.
So it's like, well, let me go that route. I don't want to just be on the internet. I want to be on TV. I want you to be able to, pull me up on your TV at home. So I started researching that, and so now I'm making plans to acquire, content, because realistically, I can't create it all myself. So we're looking at different avenues for attaining content for that.
Okay. Okay. So, any Black creatives that are content creators specifically for film and TV right now, I hope you're listening to this. So, make sure you tune into the end of the episode to get details on contact information, because that sounds like the plug.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, I'm so happy to hear that. That is awesome. And I'm like, yeah, to your point, that gatekeeping of Hollywood is slowly breaking down, and I love it. And that goes perfectly into my next question. So, Issa Rae and other prominent Black figures in the film industry have recently spoken out a lot about the racism in the film industry, and how important it is for us to stay on their necks, because like we need Black perspectives behind the scenes, on the screen, in diverse roles, wherever. So, as a Black creative, what unique form of storytelling do you feel like you bring, or just Black people in general as a collective bring to the independent film industry?
Well, for me, like you said, our voice just hasn't been heard. You don't see us in those major roles. Um, you're starting to now see, some writers and producers, directors getting to shine. And I tell you, people like Tyler Perry creating his own lane is a big inspiration. And even looking at Forrest Whitaker. A lot of people don't. They see him as an actor, but they don't know him as a producer and director and so forth. Denzel as well. And I heard Denzel once make the point that what sets us apart, especially with telling the Black story, is we know the culture. You know what I'm saying? So it takes somebody like us to tell it. And that's what, with the content that I'm looking to create and creating, I always have a spiritual component in it. Because I think that gets left out a lot. And when I see them, the other people there, try to tell our spiritual stories, they just don't get it right. It's just not right. So a lot of my works have some type of spiritual component to it, because I think as a people, that's something that we have lost connection with. And so, we're big in entertainment. So if that's where people are at, then I'm gonna meet them at that point and give them, start to drop some spiritual knowledge in there.
Yes, I feel that. And please note, he says spiritual, not religious. There are
Exactly.
differences. So
Two different.
I've had conversations with you, so I know what you meant, but I wanted to make sure the listeners knew what you
Right. Because we get plenty of religious films
Yes.
now, the gospel and all of them, which were good films, but we don't really get a lot of stuff with a spiritual component.
Yes. And that's where our real roots before we got over here.
Right.
Yeah.
Daughters of the Dust is a good one. I think everybody, Black people should watch, about the Gullah people.
Yes.
So yeah, like I said, we don't really get a lot of those, and it's really sad that we don't. So that's where I want to make a difference.
Yeah, we need that. We need that. That kind of reminds me, Black Hair, at the time of this recording, Black Hair just came out. Bad Hair. There it is, Bad Hair.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So there was a discussion about that. I'm in a couple of like Black creative groups, and there was a discussion about like, this was oh, it was so cheesy, and all these things, and people were collecting opinions, and my thought was, I don't care if it was cheesy or not. I know that a Black creative took the time to think about what would a satire, comedy, horror film look like for Black women, and they created it. And I didn't even have to look at the credits to know it was created by a Black person because of the nuances within the film. The things, what does a chemical burn look like when you get a relaxer? How you pat your head when it itches when you get weave in your head. All these things, only, like you said, only we know. We know that because that's our lived experience. I can't tell you that.
Right.
And it showed on screen.
Man, wonderful. I hadn't seen that. I'm going to have to look for that one. But yeah, exactly. They can't tell you how hair smells when it's getting pressed.
No.
They can't tell you that. Only we know that type of stuff. So this is why I think it's definitely important that Black creatives, start to just, regardless of how bad you think it looks, and this is where I had to practice what I preach, because I would tell people all the time, so what if your first works, if they suck, that's just the nature of it, but it's always going to improve, and I would tell people that all the time, but not do it myself, like, well, I want mine to be perfect.
Right.
But yeah, so now I'm taking a dose of my own medicine and just put it out there, see how people, take to it.
Yes, I'm with you on a similar journey with that, providing a lot of advice, encouraging Black creatives while also smothering my own creative goals behind perfectionism. So I totally understand where you're coming from.
Yeah. And and in the Little Rock community, where I'm at, you got a lot of people that's out here now making moves. They're out here shaking and getting it done. A lot of work is being done. So I'm excited to see what's, about to drop, where things are going. And I know people all over the country, are in that same mode. As soon as I did the casting for the short that I just did, I started getting, people hit me up from St. Louis and Atlanta and just all around wanting to work. And I'm like, wow, I hadn't even dropped it yet. This is just a casting call. But it definitely made me feel good. Put a little pressure on you, though, you better come with something, decent at least.
Yeah.
But, like I said, I'm excited about where things are going.
That's awesome. And I'm excited for you. So, of course, I'm going to ask you if you could tell us how much are you willing to share about the premise of your upcoming short?
Definitely. So the title is called Not Alone. And it's about a Black woman, a wife, in an abusive relationship, domestic violence. And basically her ancestors come to her and tell her, we're here if you need us, just reach out. And in the midst of being beaten, she reaches out and her ancestors come to her aid. So that's the premise of the story.
I'm liking that already. Soon as I heard ancestors, I'm like, yes. I love it. I love when you see our, the richness of our history and lineage acknowledged in film and not overlooked and not rooted in slavery.
Right. I always want to see us being victorious.
Yes.
And actually, I mean, this whole project originally was supposed to be for a contest. It was a contest, and the prize was, the monetary prize was great, but it also gave you a whole bunch of gear. So, and it was from Road, since I know you're familiar with Road.
Yeah.
They do it every year. So it was the Road Reel contest. And so I was trying to pick a topic that they could relate to as well. And domestic violence is just, unfortunately, one of them things that everybody is plagued with.
Yeah.
And I was shocked that, we shot ours on the 17th. You had on the 18th, you had a major headline came out about a horrible domestic violence situation. And I want to say the 19th or the 20th, you had another one. It's like, oh my goodness, why right now? But yeah, it's a sore for our community. And it's those type of topics, that elephant in the room that no one wants to deal with. It's the type of stuff I want to pull the Band-Aid off and like, hey, let's look this in the face and deal with it.
Yes. Yes, that is so true. There are so many complex topics that we don't want to talk about. We're so hush-hush in a community about things. And, just discussing them, just being vocal can bring a lot of light to some of the trauma that we incur. So, yeah, much respect for that.
Thank you.
Sure. Okay, so getting into process. So, of course, doing a film is a huge undertaking. It requires a lot of different types of creatives, actors, additional videographers, designers, writers. So how many of those roles did you recruit for versus, take on yourself? Because I know a lot of times, especially when you're a multi-hat creative, you're like, you know what, I can save the money, I can do it myself. I can get it better if I do it myself, get it done. So how much of that work did you outsource versus taking on?
Well, like you said, we always try to take on way too much, and it really stunts us. And I have been plagued by that over the years, where I try to wear all the hats. I mean, I even went as far as learn to be a makeup artist, get my MAC card and all of this stuff. And it's way too much. So in this film, I was fortunate to have a wonderful crew that was willing to come in and just help wherever I needed help. Sean Deshaun Berry with Deshaun B Films, I believe is his name. He came in and, now he does the exact same thing, but it wasn't beneath him to come in and grab the boom mic, and it's like, okay, I got you on audio. Marcus Eubanks, who's, well known, even an Emmy, award winner.
He was in an early episode. Check him out.
Yes. So he even came in, and he was on the camera at one point, and then I'm like, shoot, I don't mind stepping down and saying, hey, because you got more experience, here's the A cam. I'm gonna grab the boom mic. He was like, no, I get the mic and you do it. So I had people like that, and Sean really helped out a lot, bringing a lot of his crew members, to help me out as well. So helping, with script management and just keeping everything organized. Because I would have missed a lot of shots. I did a lot of pre-production on my own, as far as the shot list and figuring out which was going to be the best order to shoot everything. And with COVID now, you got different COVID procedures that you need to try to adhere to minimize as many people that's on set at one time. And so I did a lot of the pre-production work myself. So once the crew came on set day, I was able to pass that over to an assistant, and she did a phenomenal job making sure everything happened the way it was supposed to happen. Because I was forgetting shots, because you get so caught in your zone and making sure, everything is in focus, the audio is crisp, and people were like, hey, are we shooting this scene next? I'm like, yeah. And she's like, no, according to your schedule, this is supposed to be next. Like, you're right. Let's stick to the script. So it was really wonderful to have a crew, a production crew around me to help keep everything running so smoothly. And then the cast as well. They were, willing when they wasn't shooting. They weren't involved in the scene. They were helping, clear the set and make sure continuity was kept and everything. So everybody chipped in. It was definitely a team effort.
I love that so much, especially hearing that, even some of the creatives who are more senior on certain things or have more experience were willing to come in and like step back and just kind of let you do your thing and just say like, I'm here to support however you need me to support. And that's how we should be as a creative community. Like, it's not about how long who's been doing what. It's like whose vision or what vision are you trying to execute and how can I help you execute that vision?
Exactly. And having so many, different creatives on set,
Mm-hmm.
they brought things to the table that I didn't see. You know, Marcus definitely came in clutch with a few shots that I didn't think about, but by him being there, he's seen them. One of them, matter of fact, I was going through all the footage as I'm editing, and I'm like, where does this shot come from? I don't remember, planning this shot. He did it on his own. And I'm so glad he
Mm.
did it, because it was a perfect insert shot. So yeah,
Wow.
having so many minds, everybody's firing on all cylinders, and it just made for a better experience for everybody.
Yes. Shout out to team collaboration for Black creatives. That's excellent
Yes,
when you have
indeed.
a squad because especially something like a film that's just such a huge undertaking and even like I'm amazed when I see people do these little YouTube videos that are like 10 minutes long and I'm like, man, who held the camera? I can't even get somebody to take my pictures for Instagram. Like
Right, man. And I was so nervous too about putting any of my work out there. Like I wrote the
mm,
script and everything, and I'm like, man, is this gonna sound cheesy? You know, just how is it gonna be received? And once
mhm,
I finally, because for the long, I put a whole crew and team together without them seeing the script. And so when I
mm,
finally had no other choice but to give them the script so they could see it, everyone loved it. So I'm like, okay, and I was tripping for no reason.
mhm.
But that's just that, trying to make sure it's perfect, spent so many
Yeah.
hours researching screenwriting and reading books on screenwriting and so forth to
Mhm.
make sure that, I put forth the best that I could put forth.
Yeah, I totally get that too, especially as a writer myself. I'm sensitive about that too. So like it doesn't matter. Like I write for work and it is professional, and I also write personally, and it doesn't matter which one it is. I'm like, I don't want you to see it. If I'm writing one sentence for a marketing campaign at work or for an interface, I'm like, let me get it perfect before I send it to my team. you know,
Right, right.
because it's just that perfectionist, you just want to make sure that you're putting your best work out because so much, especially as creative, you feel like your work is a reflection of you and people will judge you based on your work.
Exactly. Exactly. So it was a big relief when, it was well received. So I'm like, yeah, okay, let's move forward to the next step now.
Yeah.
So, and it's going to make it easier to finally, let people see my scripts and so forth.
Yes. Yes. I'm really excited for your film and where it's gonna go. I've followed a few of your shots and stuff that you've posted on social, so I
Thank
know
you.
it's gonna be
Thank you.
great.
And even with that, like I forgot all about the behind the scenes. And even
Mm.
with my photography, I've bought, additional cameras because I'm like, okay, I need to be recording behind the scenes footage. And you get in that
Mm-hmm.
moment and I forget all about it. And so even in this, and this where Sean came in again and was like, hey, who's handling behind the scenes? And so they all just started taking pictures and recording stuff. And it's like, thank you. Because if he
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't have never said that, it wouldn't have been no behind the scenes footage.
Wow, team coming through again. So
Yes.
important.
Yeah. So yeah, I was, like I said, it was just an exciting feeling to have so many people, around you helping you. Because I mean, you're always going to be nervous.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I can't even describe how that feels, that nervousness. But once we finally took the first shot, you kind of settle in then, and now it's just let's get it done and get the best take in each scene, and it went flawlessly.
Yes. So how long has it been since you started? Like from the moment you thought like, okay, this is what I want to do until now.
As far as that's production,
Or the idea, just like when the idea faintly crossed your mind, like, I think I want to do this as a short film.
Um, so last year I missed the opportunity to get involved with the road reel competition. So this year I was kind of anticipating it. And I remember vividly, I was talking with someone and I'm like, oh, I wonder if road is going to do, because, with Corona and everything, stuff just ain't the same no more.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I wonder if they're going to do that competition again this year. And literally the next day, the announcement came out. So I got to work at that point. And I want to say this was around August, July, August timeframe when they announced it. And so I got to work then thinking about concepts. And I went through several before I landed on domestic violence. I even went to the point of trying to find the CEO of Road and do some background research on him, because
Interesting.
I want to make sure, I do a film that will connect to them, that they can
Yeah.
connect with. And so then with my work schedule, it kept going, oh, well, I'm not going to have time to pull this off, to not ever want to give up on it. So finally, I decided to go ahead and do it. And then it happened, as it would, the day that I had scheduled for the production, work got in the way. And the team that I had, assembled, they still wanted to do the project. So that's why we still ended up doing it, even though it didn't get submitted for the contest.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, so I'd say it definitely took, a solid 2 months of planning to bring it to fruition.
Okay. And that's a nice tip too, looking at, who is going to ultimately be judging the competition and how to best connect with them, because you have to know your audience. And we talk about that so much on this show, like knowing your target demographic as a writer, knowing your audience and who you're speaking to. If you're in tech, knowing who your user is and what their needs are. So it's just always important to know who you are talking to. And, if you could have found anything good and just like pretty much connected with him directly with your film. Yeah.
And I don't even know if he would have been a judge, but, he's owner of the company, so I'm going to start at that point.
Yeah, like he may see it at some point.
Right. So whatever I could dig up in his background, I wanted to try to, pull on those heartstrings.
All right. So knowing you're doing this independent, you don't have Netflix, or Universal Studios, or more so Netflix, because Netflix is really championing a lot of Black content now. But you don't have like one of those big names behind you. So how have you gone about creating a film that, something that's usually considered a huge mass scale production on your own? So what kind of hacks, like cost hacks, productivity hacks, efficiency hacks have you used?
Basically just working and saving the money to produce it. Even on a no budget film, you're still going to spend money.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So a lot of it though, I created myself, or, I would make it. So props, costumes, I made them myself. In which they were really amazed with. I'm like, oh my God, man, these uniforms look good. Like I have a couple of police officers, I have a couple of EMT people. And so I went, looked at EMT. Well, I have a friend that's an EMT. So I had her to send me pictures of her uniform. And then I went on Amazon, bought the patches, bought the shirts and the pants, and, put the uniform together, come down to the bag and stethoscope and, the whole shebang. For police officers, both of my younger brothers are law enforcement. So I see them all the time. So I knew, the gun belts and handcuffs and guns, all of that to make them look legit. And you just, I do a lot of research on YouTube on how to pull off different effects and so forth. So when you're limited, it makes you think outside the box. Like I can't get a police car. So how can I create a scene where I got police lights and an officer showing up in a car? How can I pull that off? Well, you may not have to see it to know, your mind is so powerful. Pull on that.
Yes,
So if I
good
show the
point.
guy in the in the costume and you see the lights, because you can get that effect from a lot of different lights nowadays. So I got the lighting effect and I got the guy in a uniform. I don't necessarily have to have the car.
Mm-hmm.
Like Jaws, when they made Jaws, they didn't have a shark at
Right.
first. So it was just the music that made you think, what's coming. Something is in the water without seeing what's in the water.
Mm. That is so good. That is so good. I never thought about that because, like, and you're right, your mind will anticipate. And just from what we know about consuming so much media and so many movies and how the plot usually goes, we know what happens. Like, if a police officer shows up, you see blue and red lights, you know what that means. You don't have to see the car. You hear the noise, you know what that means. You hear that heavy knock.
Exactly. Exactly.
Those types of things. Yeah, that's actually a really, really good hack of a way to kind of like play on what people anticipate and almost like familiar mental models of what people expect to use that to take advantage of things. So that's a really good one.
Yeah, and that's something I had to learn to start to lean on more, not being able to tell the story without necessarily, because we don't have big budgets, we don't have a budget like Hollywood. So how can I tell the story with minimal props or, not having access to everything that you think you need? So it definitely makes you think.
Yeah. And I'm sure you have to be really quick on your toes, because I'm sure you could be in the middle of a scene and you may need something or a prop or anything that you didn't think of, you didn't expect. So you kind of have to be innovative and think of other ways to signify things and explain things. So lots of problem solving, it sounds like.
A whole lot of problem solving, which is a skill that unfortunately they don't really teach in school.
Yeah.
My background is actually, well, I mentioned the military. So I was an aviation electrician in the military, and that was all about problem solving and troubleshooting. A lot of times on the spot, you got an aircraft that has to launch, but something is wrong, and you got to figure that out. And there's people's lives at stake. So that's a skill that I've, have developed over the years. And it just translates in so many other areas of life. I'll also say, on the film, what helps as well is having that background in photography, because you learn lighting. This is a 2D thing, but you got to figure out how to light it in a way to make it 3D. You also learn, composition. So, the rule of thirds and all of that stuff. What's going to give me a solid, strong image? And then the spiritual side of that, learning about your chakra system and the colors. And you probably learned this in marketing, which I did go to school for marketing as well. Once I moved back to Arkansas, I went to Euler for marketing.
Okay.
But understanding how different colors are going to elicit different feelings. So you pull on all of these things, and sound is so key. Really. I recreated a thunderstorm in this film.
Wow.
And people that have seen some of the clips was like, man, how did you get it to rain and, the thunderstorm and stuff? It's like, yeah, it's a water hose, water hose and sprinkler against the window. But when you put the sound effect with it, of a thunderstorm, and I got lights that flash like lightning, it looks like it's a thunderstorm going on.
Wow.
And not to give all of it away, but there's a sunrise in the scene that was shot at midnight.
Wow. See, look, now I want a full behind the scenes documentary that's just as long as the film. Like, I need all of this.
So like I said, you figure out, well, I'm not getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning to shoot a sunrise, nor will my actress be available at that time of morning to shoot this sunrise. So how can I pull this effect off, in the middle of the night? And we were able to do it.
Wow, those are things you don't even think about when you're watching a movie. You are just entertained.
Right.
You just assume like that world exists as it's presented.
Exactly.
If it's night, you just assume they shot at night. So
Yeah.
that's really interesting. I never thought about that. Like, I'm really one of these pictures of somebody running a water hose now, so I can see it.
You know,
I need that side by side with the actual shot and what it's gonna look like.
I wish I didn't shoot the setup, but yeah, I basically, and I tested all of this stuff before I got people on set, except for the sunrise. That was just a theory I had in my mind, what would work. And I tried it and it worked perfect one take. And, you know, we had the shot. But the water hose thing, that I actually did a photo shoot a few months ago where I made a rain machine in my studio. And so
Nice.
I basically emulated that, but I needed it to rain against the window. And with rain, like you don't shoot it directly at something, you shoot it in the air and let it fall back down, let gravity take effect to make it more realistic. That and backlighting it so that it shows up. So in the scene, I wanted to see the rain, the shadow of the rain coming down the wall. So I had to play with the positioning of the light, which was, you know, supposed to be moonlight coming through the window that's showing the rain coming down the wall. So I played with the positioning of that, where to put it, do I put gels on it, all of that stuff before. And this is what people don't, I think, realize either when they watch movies, how much pre-production goes into movies. You know, you got to see, with movies, you got to know what the final result is going to be in order to plan how to do it. So you're almost working in reverse. You know, you got to see it first and then figure out how to achieve it.
Wow. Okay. I didn't think about that, but that makes sense. Like you're working backwards almost.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and like I said, it's when I watch a movie now, I can't just watch it for entertainment. I'm watching, like, I want to see where the cut's made at. You know,
Yeah.
where's the camera at? Where's the light coming from? Is that a one take, or, you know, did they cut this scene? That's the type of stuff. I can't just sit there and watch the movie and enjoy the movie. All of those
Yeah.
things, I'm trying to, you know, pick it apart so I can learn from it.
Yes. Wow. See, it yeah, I would bet that you would see everything behind the scenes of it, cuz yeah, I don't know. Now I'm interested, but now I'm like, you know what? Maybe the film industry, I don't need to see the behind the scenes of it, cuz movies, that's my favorite form of escapism. So
Yeah. You know, and after I watch a movie, I love when they have a director's cut, where
Mhm.
they sit there, and I will watch that before I watch the movie. Sometimes, like, that's the part that really interests me, is that director's cut, that commentary, and they explain their vision, you know, and why they shot something the way they shot it.
Mhm.
That's what's interesting to me when I look at movies.
Yes, I would say this is a show, and of course, it's notorious for not having enough Black characters, but it's still, nevertheless, it was one of my favorite shows, Game of Thrones.
Hmm.
And they would show a lot of behind the scenes footage, and it always amazed me how they got those shots, all the effects, and as I've seen some, even for Lovecraft Country, which recently I finished that, and just seeing the green screens and how they're shooting all like
Yes.
these shots. There was this shot when they were underwater. It appears that they're underwater, but then when you see how they shot it, they were literally like in this little bin, and then like the cameras and stuff were on the side shooting it. And even music videos, I've seen some
Hmm.
things where it looks like the person is walking over you, but they're really in a glass room, and there's the camera is shooting from the other room from the bottom. So
Right.
it's just crazy how these things come together and it looks so seamless. And it always amazes me. You don't see not one mic, person, light at all in any of the shots. You are completely immersed
Exactly.
in this other world.
Exactly. You know, I haven't seen Lovecraft Country yet. I didn't finish Game of Thrones, but um, I've seen some of it. And green screen, I'm really want to get more into green screen,
Mm,
to the point, I'm building a cyc wall out at my studio, and it was going to be white originally, but now I'm thinking I'm painting it green,
mm,
so that I can get into more green screen work. And I'm looking for somebody, if you're out there, for CGI, that can do 3D modeling. Because it's been years since I learned it in school. I don't even think they use Maya no more. So I recently tried to get back into it and was like, okay, yeah, I'm going to leave that alone and just find somebody to do it. Because, yeah, that learning curve is steep. But that's something that I'm really intrigued in. Gemini Man is the technology that they used in that.
Yes.
Literally, you only need one actor now because they can put anybody's face on another actor.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, wow, and it's so realistic. Like you don't even realize it's CGI.
Yeah, that movie, when I saw the preview for it, I remember my mind was blown. I was like, is that Will Smith fighting Will Smith? Like,
Exactly.
I was like, and it looks good. It doesn't look totally cheesy, And then I watched the movie, and I just kept waiting as I watched the movie for at some point for it to look bad. But no,
Nope.
it looked really, really good, and I was really impressed. And even with like this reverse age technology they're using now, that was amazing too, because it really did look like Will Smith 20 years ago.
Yeah. So when you think about the possibilities with that technology now, even actors, actresses that, have transitioned who are no longer here, as long as they see, they can basically recreate them and bring them back for movies now.
I did not think about that.
Yeah. So talk about cutting your budget,
That is very interesting. I wonder, that could be a matter. That is actually a very interesting point that I wonder how that could be worked out legally. Are actors now doing that? Are they now big actors? I am willing to sign over my likeness to my estate so that my estate can determine, what new films when I'm gone I can star in.
Exactly. I know the legality of it is going to be intense, but I'm sure they're going to figure out a way to do it, get around it, some loophole, something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And some actors may willingly want to do it. Some of them may be fine with it.
True. It'd be kind of like Tupac still dropping albums well after, he's transitioned. You got people still making movies and they long gone.
Yeah, still dropping albums. Shout out to the Dave Chappelle skit. That's always
Right.
so funny to me. I need to go back and watch that because we talked about it. One of his best skits, man.
Indeed.
And very meta, as I am currently wearing a Tupac shirt as I record this. Too bad we're not doing we're not doing video. I'm wearing a Poetic Justice shirt today.
Oh man, amazing.
All right. So I know you've already shared a few of these. Are there any particular like unexpected successes or challenges that you experience in production that you want to share?
I would say, you can plan until the cows come home, but there's always going to be something that's going to pop up. You're going to learn something every time you do this stuff. One of the things that, as I'm editing here, I did a cut in action and move the camera to a different location and get a different angle. And for the next scene, and when we pick the action back up, they wanted to start with the line that they left off on. That line didn't get, it got delivered right, but the continuation of what they were going to say was in there. So it made it a challenge to cut those two scenes together. And it's little stuff like that, that next time around, I know either not to cut so soon, let them continue the action, or, cut sooner. So that you can marry up those clips and post. And always, get more coverage than you think you need, which I've heard that before, but until you actually get in the trenches and start cutting all this stuff together, it's like, man, I wish I would have got this shot, or I wish I would have done that shot. Which, I mean, when you got the time and the budget, you can go back and have all these people come back and set it back up again. But in my situation with this one, that's not feasible. I could try it, but getting the light in the same spot that I had it the last time, so it looks the same. All of those things, it can be done, but it would be very tedious to try to pull that off.
Yeah.
So I did learn a lot of little things like that that'll help with the next one. So that would probably be my biggest, I say the biggest challenge. That and audio. I can't stress audio enough. Sound has to be perfect. And so I went into this thing hoping to have 3 different audio sources. The shotgun mic that I had on my camera is a great shotgun mic, but that was only to get great scratch audio to be able to sync up, the audio and the visual in post. I forgot that the cable that came with it is not the correct cable, but my mind again was elsewhere. So I almost had scratch audio that was useless. Luckily, I had the person that was my assistant that was working the slate board. I had her clap it loud enough to where that clap still came through, and I was able to sync up the clips. The second issue I ran into, though, was I had lavalier microphones on my main 2 actors that pretty much had all the dialogue, and they didn't work the way they were supposed to work. I ended up ditching them because, time we supposed to did the first shoot at like 4, it's almost 4:30, and I'm still fighting with these lavalier microphones. So I ended up switching them out with a set that I already had myself. That I didn't think. Well, the problem was I wanted to keep their vocals on 2 different tracks. So in post
Easy
production,
editing. Yeah.
right? If I need to boost this one on this, so that was my reason with going with the original route. But when they wasn't working, I ended up switching back to a set that I already owned, which means both of their vocals were going to be on the same track. And then I had a shotgun microphone that was, a really good shotgun mic. And I had that going into a different recorder than I had the lavaliers going into. So redundancy. I had a lot of redundancy, and it paid off. It definitely paid off. So the audio I got from the lavaliers I didn't even use because the shotgun, audio was great.
Yeah, that came through, and I totally understand that. Having to like edit audio on one track is just tedious.
Yes,
Tedious
yes,
and rough, and I cannot imagine having to do that for an entire film. My goodness.
man. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. The production is probably the easiest part. Pre-production and post-production is a lot of work. And that's why major film companies, they don't put out a lot of films every year. You may get 1, maybe 2, major movies, feature films that come out in a year from each company,
Yeah, yeah, that sounds like a lot of work just for your short film. So I cannot imagine
Yes.
doing like these full, especially these Titanic length films. Whew.
Exactly. My goodness. I mean, I eventually want to get to, doing a feature, but I want to step my way up. So I want to do several short films first before I try to tackle, a full feature film.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. That makes sense. And then, like you said, if you want to hop in another competition or something like that, there are always short film competitions that are going on.
Right. Yeah, there's festivals. I'm looking at getting in the it's an Arkansas festival that's coming up. So this film that we just did, definitely I'll submit that one. And I got a couple of more that should be ready by then as well.
Good, good. Well, let me know definitely when you submit because I wanna catch it and support how I can.
I appreciate that. I would definitely let you know.
Always. Okay, so as we get ready to wrap up, I have a few questions I always ask all of my guests.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
earlier, you mentioned that you were reading some script writing books. Can you drop any books that you can recommend that either you read in the past or you heard were good reads or is a current read for you?
I'd say my favorite one, and I hate I waited so long to read it, is Save the Cat, Jacob Blake.
Mm.
That one is definitely by far my favorite, and anybody getting into script writing would definitely want to read that one. Next, I would say there's one called Heroes and heroines, and that one is on. I can't remember the author's name, but it's on character development. The different archetypes of characters and how they, relate to each other and so forth. That one I've had for some years, and I've always pulled on that to assist in character development. So those two books I would highly recommend.
I may have to check that one out on the different characters. So I think that can help a lot with creative writing, just in general. Yeah.
Definitely.
Okay. And how do you think your work impacts the Black community?
Well, that, bringing that spiritual component that has been missing in a lot of what we do, and most of the times when you do get some semblance of spirituality, it's usually in some type of horror type of way.
Yeah.
So like I said, I want to do works that start to reintroduce concepts that we have forgotten. Even that ancestor, you hear, you're starting to hear as people are waking up more and more now. Consciousness is, booming right now. You'll hear that term thrown around so loosely when people really don't understand who ancestors are or which are the ancestors that you should be working with.
That's
so
man, look. You have to watch who you're talking to.
But yeah, that's a big one because they'll think, Pookie that passed away a couple of months ago is an ancestor. And not necessarily, but we're talking about the ascended masters in your bloodline. Those are the ancestors that, that you should be looking to. But again, those are things that people have lost connection with. So I'm hoping that the works that I do will impact the Black community in that fashion to reintroduce some of, why do you play in church? Now we talking religion. Why do you play this specific cadence, this drum cadence? When you say you get catching the Holy Ghost, this spiritual thing, what is the significance of this cadence? We do these things, but we don't know why we do them. Some of those type of deals, tackling those questions and stuff is what I hope to do in my work.
Yes, and we need that. We need that so much. So, and yeah, to your point, even there was recently Lovecraft is all the rage right now. And there's a scene in which, like you said, there was brought in a priestess. And of course, it was like, she was sacrificing a goat and, it was just all in that traditional horror sense. But one way they kind of flipped it back to a more positive sense was towards the end of the scene, the main actor who's played by Journey Smollett, she, basically spoke life and spoke power back into some of the spirits in the house, and they became whole and were healed. So I did like how they at least attempted to kind of make it into a positive message instead of like, just everything that has any type of dealings with spirituality for Black folks has to be scary and evil. And, I just, they're so played out, and it just plays into that fear culture that we don't need.
Exactly. American Gods is another excellent film that touches on a lot of this stuff to the point that they, who was that, Orlando Jones, his character, he got so into that we got to X this. Now you're putting too much out there. People gonna start to, connect the dots here. So yeah, that and you mentioned she sacrificed a goat. And for, most people that come up in Christianity, I definitely, from early ages, my father's a pastor, evangelist, prophet, all of that. Grandfathers were, uncles. You look at, you hear sacrifice and immediately think it's something so evil, not realizing you participate in the sacrificial ritual every first Sunday.
Yeah.
Every first Sunday. But that's different. But they don't, and it's just because they don't know. They don't see how it's the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, and if you look at stories in the Bible, there are several stories in the Bible of sacrifice. We saw, was it Abraham who had to sacrifice his son? Was about to?
Yes, exactly.
But we're not gonna get into all that today.
Exactly. We'll be here all night.
All day,
Start pulling
definitely.
that out.
Yes. Okay, so what final advice do you have for Black creatives who are looking to get into film?
Just do it. Do it regardless of where you're at. It's only going to get better, but you got to take that first step and get started. And don't think that it's the gear, because it's not the gear. And let me be the one to tell you, because I've spent a small fortune on gear. The gear is not going to make the difference. You could shoot a full movie on an iPhone. It's all about telling your story. So the art of storytelling, and just get started. Definitely do it. Get started. That would be my advice.
Get started. And lastly, where can people find you online to follow your creative journey?
Right now, I would say Facebook, under my name, Ryan Barnes, as well as Instagram. I'm not really big on social media. I got to start. Actually, I just talked to someone to start posting for me on social media. But I'm on Instagram at RB Media Photo, and it's RB_media_photo. And on Facebook, like I said, it's Ryan Barnes. You also see Amaruka beside it. So there's several Ryan Barneses. But that's where you can find me.
Excellent. I always think it's funny when I ask that question, and it's one way or another with Black creatives. It's always either like, I'm fully on social media, I'm on everything, I'm on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, and then it's always like, I'm on like maybe one thing if you catch me at that time.
What's crazy is I got a business Facebook and a regular Facebook. I got 3 Instagrams. I got 2 Twitters. Got Snapchat. I got all of that stuff. TikTok, don't use none of it. None of it. I'm horrible when it comes to staying consistent with posting. Because I'm doing so much stuff, and I just forget oh man, I should have put a post up today,
Yeah.
So
yeah, I understand that. I'm that way as well. This podcast has been my challenge to step outside of that and try to stay consistent with posting, because I will definitely.
Big ups to you on the podcast too. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
I know how much work goes into that.
Yeah, for sure. I just I had an idea one day, and I was like, I think this could work. I think this could be a good idea. And for a while, I was just like, nah, what if I don't do this right? What if I don't do that right? What if I don't get a follow? I was like, just do it. And what I had to do was, like, I set a goal for myself, and I was just like, look, you are going to schedule this interview, and I don't care how you get there, you're going to do it. So I scheduled an interview with somebody, didn't even have a mic, did not have headphones or anything. But once I scheduled that interview, it kicked my behind into overdrive, and I got on Amazon, and I 2-day shipped some stuff.
And there it is.
And there it is.
It
and
ain't
it's been
gear.
going.
It is not the gear.
It's
just
not.
Do it.
Just had to get it done.
If you want to do it, just do it. And speaking of that, I will take the opportunity to plug I have a podcast as well. It's kind of on hold a little bit, and it was the same thing. I planned that thing for like a year. And I wanted it, because it's geared towards men, so I wanted it to release on Father's Day. And so I did. I made the release on Father's Day, although I had so many challenges and complications come up. But we got it out on Father's Day. And right now it's kind of on hold a little bit, because there's a short film connected to that as well that explains the premise of the whole podcast. So that's why there hasn't been an episode right now, because I'm trying to get that short. And it was going to be the first short film that I was going to do, but the contest came up. So it's like, all right, I'm going to put that on hold to do this contest. It was $75,000 at stake. So it's like, I can use that. Let's do the contest first, and then we'll do the podcast short film. But it's called Check Them Balance. So you should definitely see more from that here soon.
Yes, I'm looking forward to it. And that's such a smart strategy to have the short film and the podcast. I love the way you connect all your media. Dope.
Thank you. Because people that know me be like, man, you do too many things. You got this and that. And I'm like, but they're all connected.
Yeah.
They're all connected.
Yeah. I can relate to that.
Yes.
If they're connected, you can make it work.
Exactly. So again, I thank you for this opportunity, and I'll definitely be following your show, and look forward to seeing more from you.
I'm so thankful that Ryan took the time to speak with us today. He really gave us a lot of insight into what it's like to take your craft into your own hands and be an independent filmmaker. I'm going to hit y'all with the 5 key takeaways that I have for today's episode, and I would love to hear yours as well. Remember, you can contact me, jazz@blackxecutive.com, or leave a review on Apple Podcasts. Number 1. Are you a product junkie? Are you using that as a procrastination method? If you're too focused on investing in equipment and not creating or putting your work out there to be consumed, you could be engaging in analysis paralysis, our favorite term on the show. Do not smother your creative goals with perfectionism and stalling by buying more and more equipment or saying, I need to do this and do that before getting started. It's just another way to do that. Number 2. Work your way around the gatekeeping in your industry. In this particular episode, we're talking about the film industry of Hollywood, which is notorious for ridiculous gatekeeping practices. With the tools and technology that we have today, we have the power to create the stories that we want to see on screen. And that brings me to number 3. Bring your truly unique lived experience into your art. That is so important, especially in the filmmaking industry. Ryan specifically talked about seeing a gap in the industry for what he wanted to see. He didn't see things he wanted to see, so he created those. And we also kind of notched that a little bit on our episode earlier in this season with Forte Photography on seeing a gap in his industry as well. And number 4, knowing when you should be a multi-hat creative and knowing when you need to say, hey, I'm going to take a step back and bring in other creatives or other professionals who can step in and bring the vision to life. Find the right balance of where you can cut costs and do work on your own versus have someone else do it for you. So Ryan specifically talked about bringing in Marcus. Marcus is another guest from earlier this season, and he's an experienced videographer, and he just came in and immediately started helping Ryan execute his vision. So know when and how to collaborate with other creatives, and those creatives can help you capture moments in between the fold that you may have missed on your own. And number 5, when creating work for a specific audience, research them to create something for them. Again, this is something that has already been reiterated in other episodes. If you go back to Tay Ebbison's episode, he talks about the importance of building out something with your prospect in mind. Ryan spoke about it more specifically in this episode because he talked about when he was going to enter that film competition, wanting to create a short specifically for the owner of the company. And again, that's a part of your audience. So knowing who you're creating your art for, if you're trying to reach a specific audience for a certain goal, which I'm assuming you are if you're putting your art out there in the world, just keep that in mind as well. So those are my 5 key takeaways. Thanks for listening to another episode of Blackxecutive. I really appreciate y'all. We are dwindling down to the end of this season. Only a few more episodes left before we're done for 2020. And we're going to come back hard in 2021 with the video audio combo. So if you haven't already done so, check out my Blackxecutive YouTube channel. Watch that interview, like and subscribe because you don't want to miss what's coming in January. I already have interviews and guests lined up that cannot wait to share their stories, and I cannot wait to share them with you. So until next time, keep aspiring to inspire. Thanks for listening to another episode of Blackxecutive. If you enjoyed listening in on this convo, leave a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you found us. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Blackxecutive. Have something to add to the conversation? Visit Blackxecutive.com to leave feedback, and your thoughts could be featured on a later episode. While you're there, pick up your exclusive Blackxecutive gear and rep the culture. And spread the knowledge. If you know a Black creator trying to go pro, a corporate mogul looking to advance, or a cousin that's always hustling but never gets an idea going, drop them a link to the show. Until next time, keep aspiring to inspire.